So, Jerry, how's it feel to be on the other side of things today, since I'm going to be asking you the questions?
You know, I was trying to think about probably 12 years of being involved, or 12 or 13 years being involved with Channel 4. I've probably been on the guest side only maybe 2 or 3 times.
I would say, yeah, I can
Yeah.
only count about 2 times that I've known you to be. So it's nice to have you.
Well, it's great to have you hosting a show here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here as a guest so we can find out more about you, because that's what this is about. So one thing I think people don't know about you is that you do a lot of traveling for your work, your job, and your passion. And I guess we'd like to know a little bit more about that. So why don't you start telling us a little bit about how you got involved with that and what that's all about.
Well, I've been involved in media for decades without revealing my age. And some know that I used to have a nonprofit organization that was located here in Lansing. And that changed to an international training organization. And so what I do besides working with you guys here at Channel 4 is do leadership training in third world or the developing world regions in order to not only express my faith, but to really invest in the lives of those who we believe are obscure and forgotten by most other organizations, churches or government or even educational organizations. So it's been a great privilege for me to kind of lead that charge to find obscure leaders all over the world who are in need of our kind of support and training.
So how long have you been doing this, and where have you been so far?
Well, since the Multimedia Ministries organization that I was heading up here, so for about the last 10 years, I've been serving an organization called Leaders in Obscurity Network. It's called LION, the Leadership in Obscurity Network. And our focus has been in areas like Africa, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and my particular burden is for South Sudan. And then most recently in India and Nepal. So the challenges are huge, but it's been a privilege to be able to actually become a part of transforming some of these cultures from the inside out. Not the political side, but in essence the non-apolitical side.
Yeah. And I guess, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind there is Nepal. That's, you said, where you've been most recently. And obviously that's something that everybody's got in their mind a little bit. If you know anything about world travels, you know anything about the world, there's been a lot of hardships that have happened there recently. Has that affected your travels there?
Well, I wish that it was in everyone's mind in one sense, besides the movie that has just come out, Everest, which, by the way, if you haven't seen, is worthwhile because there are some great shots of Nepal and what it's like in Kathmandu and heading out to the Himalayas through the kind of transportation that they have. But the vast majority of people in Nepal have never been to the Himalayas or to the Mount Everest area. Nepal is a country that until just very recently, less than 10 years, was under the rule of king. And so it's just experimenting with democracy. And the earthquake that happened earlier this year actually happened before there was even a legitimate, let's say, democratically elected government by constitutional authority. The Constitution was approved just last month. So it's a very, very unique situation in a very poor and needy country. And I had the privilege of being there several times before the earthquake, focusing on, again, some of these obscure or leaders in obscure places as well as leaders in Kathmandu in the educational world. But once the earthquake hit, of course, it represented a huge burden for us to come back and support them in what they're trying to do to rebuild their communities and organizations.
So tell me, what is a day in a life over there for you? Like, how is it different here, you know, living here and being over there and, like you said, an obscure type setting? And then what do you do over there for the people?
Well, a day in the life, every day is different, but it is radically different when we are in the developing world, particularly if we want to invest our lives among those leaders. Not to come in as some rich white American, which is what, of course, they automatically assume.
Yeah, right,
If
of
you're
course.
white and you're from America, you're rich, you're
And
coming
you are
with
rich,
money,
too.
or you're coming with some kind of political aspirations or non-government organization. So for me, there's a referral, and we primarily have been referred to some of these leaders through contacts that we had in India. Many of them are either educational, church, or community development leaders. And I would gather 12 to 20 of them together, where we would have a 1 or 2 day planning, strategic planning kind of session, or some form of leadership training. And what's unique about what we do tied to Channel 4 and our background is that rather than do a PowerPoint presentation and a whiteboard and coming in with manuals and I'm the professor and you all sit and listen to me, we've developed an 8-step, what we call oral methodology. Most of these leaders are not learning best by what we would call the typical literate way of our classroom situation or universities. But they learn through storytelling and dialogue and drama and music and more of a kinetic learning experience. So a day in the life is discovering how to communicate either with a translator. Sometimes they can know English, but most of the time I'm working through a translator trying to communicate some of these basic principles and ideas and concepts. So that's exciting. It's an exciting challenge, but I'd like to talk briefly about what's happened since that earthquake, because that's really changed our focus a lot. We're not a relief organization. We're just a very small organization focused on networking individuals and organizations to come alongside of these very needy leaders. But the overwhelming needs after the earthquake, I mean, can you imagine? There are tens of thousands of people right now still living under tarps since the earthquake. And this is a country that's mountainous. Kathmandu is at about close to 5,000 feet, and then it goes up from there.
Right.
So winter is winter is upon them. Cold nights, there's snow, and many of them are living under tarps because their communities are absolutely devastated. The buildings are fallen down, the businesses are gone, there's no power, there's no sewer, there's no water. And where do you begin with something like that? So for us, Neil, we begin with the people who are most effective, the people who are in those communities, particularly the rural areas, because the outside, whether it's the UN or the US or Canada or the European Union, will come in with relief and always bring it through the governmental authorities or the municipal authorities. But our focus is finding those in obscure places, those leaders who are really invested one-on-one with their people. So we bring in a few American dollars and help them build corrugated steel homes, for example, which at least provides them security for their things, a shelter over their head. We've built some community toilets, which sounds kind of strange for a leadership training organization. But think about it, if you have 500 people living in a temporary campground, probably for the next 2 or 3 years until things can be built, you have to have some kind of sanitation.
People's needs have to be met before you can really work on the individual, their spirit, their love for things.
But the unique thing is, Neil, okay, so I would say to you, let's say you're the Nepalese leader.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, how do we build a toilet in your community? In other words, we don't take a plumber from the United States and say, well, here's how we build toilets. How they would structure it is completely different. It's much more like the old outhouses we might have in our Midwest farms, but then upgraded to what is contemporary there. And of course, they don't use a Western style toilet, just using a
No,
toilet as an
I would
example.
imagine they
It's
don't.
a squat type toilet, but the sewage has to go
So
somewhere.
you've had to use those. You've had to use those toilets.
Yes. Yeah, a little bit unique, yes.
And you've also talked about other things with me, such as different foods you've experienced over there and bucket baths, right?
Well, bucket showers, you
Bucket
would call
showers,
it, yeah,
yes.
because a bath, I don't know how you get in we call a bath getting into something, right?
Yes.
You're getting in the water. They would call a bath, you have a bucket of water and you have another little scoop, and then that comes over top of you, which is the way I think the vast majority of people in the world actually take showers or baths. We don't think of that.
No.
Because we have the running water and we want it to be warm or hot or cold or whatever.
Yeah, right.
So now, okay, take Nepal. It's getting cold there right now. How are you going to get warm water? Well, you're going to have to heat it up, put it in the bucket, and then put it over top of you. And try not to use more than a bucket because you're going to have to carry all your water to wherever you are. Just example of daily living. It's hard.
How do you keep people's spirits up there? How do you maintain, a good community there? I mean, I'm guessing that for them it's a normal life, so maybe they don't need a whole lot, but do you provide that way?
Well, Neil, I don't want to give the impression that all the people in Nepal, like all the people in Africa or in India, are poor and living out in the boonies. There's a growing middle class, and in Nepal, the leadership of the country has to fall to the middle or the upper middle class. There are multiple faiths there, religious faiths, which drive a lot of their decisions. But in terms of the earthquake, many of them were deeply affected. Let's say you take your home. If you walked home today and it's completely laying on the ground, what would you do with it? Everything you had is lost.
Right.
You're a middle class person. They have the same struggles as those who are out in the rural or mountainous areas. But they also have more resources, they have more connections, they have better education, they have the ability to make plans or strategies or connect with their banks or whatever it might be. And it's those people who have none of that. So what happens for us, it's basically, I use it 4 E's. First of all, we just got to go find some of those leaders and those communities and encourage them. Most of the places that I try to go, no other white person has been there, if ever, but certainly not in the last 5 or 10 years. Secondly, the goal is then to equip them in some way. Sometimes they just need an idea, they need a strategy, they need a perspective, some form of education. If it's a community development leader, some idea of developing a local business that might generate some income, or some strategy to rebuild a home. If it's a church leader, they might need, how do I organize these people? Or what can I do to communicate some faith truth that will encourage these people? So the second thing, encouragement, equipping, and then I call it empowering. Sometimes just being there for 4, 5, 6 days, walking them through the steps, being with them, the people. I may not speak their language, I may not live their culture,
right.
but it's empowering for them to have me as a mentor, as a colleague, or me and my team, somehow that it empowers them to be more effective. And then the final thing is engaging them. If we have a network with other organizations, an educational organization or a self-help organization or a skills development organization or a Christian organization that can provide some relief or training or teaching, my role is to try to engage them, to network them with others. And that brings great hope. What would bring great hope to me is just that people here in the U.S. would have an awareness that there are millions of people who need more than just our money. They need a sense of being known, being cared about. And there are dozens of lay people who could be very effective just apprenticing, kind of showing them the way, whether it's for skill development or organizational management or teaching or preaching. All of those things are needed.
So if somebody maybe would like to get involved, or I guess you said you'd like people to know more, What would you recommend?
Well, we have a website that's called lionoutreach.org. Lion, again, stands for the Leadership in Obscurity Network,
Okay.
lionoutreach.org. And we haven't linked to that through Channel 4 or anything like that, but I think it's clear, lionoutreach.org. And if they are interested, they can log on to that, take a look. We have some YouTube videos as well that are out there under a variety of Nepal or Lion. And obviously contributions, financial contributions are needed because this is a not-for-profit 501c3. It's a charitable faith organization. But I think the beginning is to just simply ask yourself the question, do I spend any time thinking about people less fortunate than I am? I'm a Christian, I'm a pastor, and so a part of who I am is reaching, as Jesus said, the least of these in the world. Because true religion, and undefiled, as the Bible says, is to care for the poor, to care for the widows, to care for the orphans, and to somehow become the hands and feet and voice of the Jesus who came to show his love. Yet anyone who has a heart for the poor is serving God by reaching out and caring and giving to. So contact me if they would like. 708-912-3555 is my direct cell phone number. There's other office numbers that are on the website, but I'd love to talk with someone personally who might be seeing this video. And you, Neil, I'd love to have you come with me sometime.
I
If
would
we
love
can
to
break
come with
away
you.
from Channel 4.
I would love to come with you. I'd love to experience the world a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we're just happy that you were able to do this,
Thanks.
sit down with us, and we're looking forward to hearing a few more of your travels over the next couple months.
That'd be great. You know, Nepal is just one little teeny one, and we could talk more about it, but India and South Sudan, there's so much more, and we've got lots of pictures. So thanks for taking some time to learn yourself. It's fun to talk about the stories.
Thanks, Jerry. We look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.